Hey, everybody, we're back. It's Jake and Mike, along with Jared Buchanan. We're on the Guns and Mental Health podcast. That's why you tuned in, I think, or streamed or downloaded or whatever we do. We don't tune in to things anymore, I don't think, but we're here and we're doing it again. Second time in a week, which means maybe we're back. Are we back, Michael? Are we back?
We're back. This is
I think we're back.
been a while since it's been both of us, right?
Yeah, it's been a hot
Two
minute.
times in 1 week.
That's you can't beat that. So we're back, and we got Jared with us. Jared and Mike met at SHOT Show, I think, right? You guys met at SHOT Show, yeah. And I wasn't there, unfortunately, this year, but whatever. My heart is broken, but that's life.
You'll
But
get the next
we're
one. You'll get the next one.
I will. God willing. But if ever there was a guest who fit everything about what we're doing as an organization, I think Jared's Kelly, also a dog person, was probably also in that category. If ever there was a person, right, who fits the guns and mental health thing, I think he's it. So if Kelly was the female version, you're the male version. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are and why this is important and where you came from, and we will jump off from there because I'm stoked to meet you and chat with you.
Outstanding. Thank you guys so much for having me. My name is Jared Buchanan. Everything I do in terms of suicide prevention is memory of my father, Officer Paul Buchanan. He was a police officer for 24 years who died by suicide. It happened while I was in the Marine Corps, which was, very, very difficult for me. Believe it or not, I'm grateful for the life I have. Filled with unconditional love, hope, belief in the work that we're doing now, and I'm just trying my very best to acknowledge his note of make my death an issue to help others like me, and similar to what you guys do and what Mike does. And I appreciate you sharing your story at SHOT Show. It was very inspiring as well. And let's try and save some lives here and have this discussion.
Yeah, maybe we should start there with the I guess your origin story. You got a documentary video that talks about this, and you alluded to it just there. You're like, the message or the note my father wanted to leave or whatever. That's powerful and profound, and I think very unique. Why don't you just tell everybody, because we're not going to hyperlink this to that anything. So just tell them
Yeah.
the story, and then we'll go.
Yeah. So March 12th of 2013, I was stationed at 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines over at Camp Pendleton, California. I received a phone call that would change the rest of the course of my life. And that phone call spoke about there being an accident at the police department that your father was involved in, and we're going to be sending a Red Cross message and you're going to be coming home. So immediately, I'm shook with confusion. I was told he was still alive. So that kind of it was like a wrong sense of hope I had when I was driving down to the airport to get home to Connecticut. So that took, many years to recover from after. But anyways, get down to the airport. My brother calls me and he tells me the truth about what really happened. Ended up flying home. Flew home from San Diego. I'm from Connecticut, South Windsor, Connecticut. So fly home to Connecticut, and this is where the mission starts, guys. On the next day, so March 13th, I'm told that there's a note left for me. My mother wasn't in the state of mind to be able to read the note, so my brother and myself were led to the back of a police cruiser. In the cruiser, there's this note left from my father, and the words that stuck out are towards the end. He writes, and it's handwritten: make my death an issue so you can get help for other people like me. Make my death an issue so you can get help for other people like me. I'll be honest, I for a long time, even after getting out of the Marine Corps and trying to figure out purpose, and I kind of didn't want to deal with it, I never really had a chance to grieve from the process, and like I kind of didn't want to deal with it. And it wasn't until many years later I really took this message took this note and ran with it, both literally with the ultra running in his memory and metaphorically. through advocacy work like what you guys do. But I'll tell you what, at this stage in life, I found forgiveness, I found faith. I love my father, and I'm just trying to do my very best to get this message every state of the country. And we're getting there in terms of the presentations I've been doing. So we're getting close. So
Tell
that's
us
pretty
about
much.
that. Tell us about the presentations, but also frame up what he meant by that
Yeah.
note.
So I think in his generation, he started in 1989. None of this was spoken about. None of this was talked about. It was suicide, mental health, and law enforcement, especially. It was kind of, if something like this happened, it wasn't spoken about. It was almost like it was swept under a rug. I think in his dying words, he wanted something to come from this, leaving that message to my family. And my dad was a strong guy, you know. I think when he realized that he wasn't Superman anymore, maybe in order to like protect my brother and I and my mom, he wasn't entirely honest with us about with what was going on. I had a lot of He did a lot of soul searching towards the end, a lot of when I replay some of the conversations we had, a lot of existential philosophical questions, like just some bizarre statements he was making. A lot of this happened in March. February, we were doing Mojave Viper training at 29 Palms. So a lot of the conversations, I would go to this room, the telephone room and everything, and I'd call him and check up. But he wasn't entirely honest with the severity of what was going on. So yeah, I think it was just a different culture back then, and now the culture is shifting where we have podcasts like this. We discuss these things. Another thing, and this ties in directly, the gun that he used, it was initially taken away from him and then given back to him. You know, tough, tough question, tough subject matter. And how I look at it now, you guys, because it's water under the bridge, what's happened has happened. It's how we can prevent this going forward. It's almost like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the lethal triangle. It's almost like you have a vulnerable person, accessibility to means, and then this wasn't in his case, but often if a substance is involved and everything, that's a lethal triangle. With him, it was more of vulnerable person, access to the firearm, and then like a panic attack. A crisis happened. He did pack a lunch that day, and I think something happened where he just he made a decision. But I'll tell you what, again, I found peace over the years. The anger is gone. I had hate for a while, that's gone, and faith really sustained me.
What were you angry at, and what? No, I don't want to ask that. What were you angry at?
Good
Just ask
question.
that.
I'll tell you what, I was angry at him. I was angry at my mother. I was angry at the police chief, the department. I looked at all these missed signs and signals after. But looking at it from a lens when I was not in an emotional state, a lens a couple years after and everything, who's the person who ultimately pulled the trigger? It was my father, you know? I think there were things that were missed, but again, it's what we can do pressing forward to learn from this and do our very best to save other lives. But had a lot of anger again because this is my hero. This is someone who I thought should always be setting the example for me and my brother. And I'll be honest with you guys, I thought for years it was an act of cowardice. It wasn't until I got myself educated. I went back to school with the GI Bill a little bit later at age 30 and then got my master's. But it wasn't until I got myself educated, started looking at it from a different perspective and lens. And then this is important too, having a non judgmental attitude when it comes to this. Very difficult to get to, but looking at the vulnerability of the person and the decision that was made from a non-judgmental a state of mind. Similar to I don't know if you're familiar with Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Quite. Yep.
Yeah,
Great book.
big fan. So he was a Holocaust survivor, and he speaks about the last of the human freedoms. This is very, very important. Your choice to choose your attitude in any given situation. So no matter how dark the abyss is, you still have that choice of attitude. So with what happened with my father, with how I'm taking it and everything, I'm deciding to have a good attitude about this and help other people using it productively, similar to logotherapy, finding meaning from suffering. I know that was a lot there.
Yeah. No,
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 it's good.
no. It's yeah, that's great. I actually I really relate to your story because I felt like I was there at one point. That's how we met, right? You saw me speak about Bill at
Yup.
the suicide prevention town hall at the shot show, and I remember going through so many emotions with Bill. Like anger was one of them. I remember like he came to me in a dream one time, and I swung on him. Like that's how I was like, "You're alive," and I was like pushing him, and he was like smiling, and I was. Um, but then I've also been on the other side of that coin, I believe, because I spent so much time with him before he pulled the trigger and took his life that everybody kind of looked to me for answers, especially because I'm the only person he left a note for. Now, my note wasn't as powerful as your note. Your note came with a lot of responsibility. Another reason why you might have been angry at your father, because it's
Yeah.
like, I've been, what, you bestowed this upon me? Like mine just said sorry, right? That was it, which made me angry because it was so short, and there's no finality to it. Like there was no answers there. But I think people were angry at me because I didn't have the answers. I guess like when you look at somebody, you said you were angry at your mother, right? Like, and how is that possible? Is it because you felt she may have missed signs? Is
Yeah,
that how you're angry?
as you know, that's the thing with suicide. It's like, where does the blame go? And I think I was 23 at the time. I was trying to figure out who to blame. And the person who ultimately pulled the trigger, he's gone. So I think I did not know where to direct it, And I'm like, Mom, if he's telling you these things, if he's you were with him 24/7. I was out of the house. My brother Benjamin, he was going to the University of Connecticut, UConn. He was out of the house. So I was like, how could you have missed this? Missed all this. So it was just a very tough and dark and difficult point in my life. And especially because that happened in March, the Marine Corps gives me, I had like 5 days of leave. So 5 days of leave, go back, and then we deployed on the 31st MEU in May. So I never had any time, really, really to process this until I got out after.
I want to ask you, and I don't know if this is something you've come across in your trade. 'Cause you're a counselor now too. I want the audience to know. So you're professionally licensed. You're one of us now. But in your suicide prevention work, as it was in ours until we got our minds changed, is there a common motif of suicide is preventable, right? And we like to believe that. And at the end of the day, it is, because it is a choice. It's a decision. And if we can help shape or influence or persuade people to choose differently, then yeah, in the spirit, it is preventable. However, with my work in emotional functioning, which is like kind of my bailiwick, shame and guilt are very, very powerful emotions. They're required, they're necessary, they're nothing we want to run from. We want to understand them, though. Shame's job is to tell the brain that expectations were not met, and you let somebody down, right? So sadness is when your own expectations aren't met. Shame is when you fail to meet somebody else's expectations, meaning you cause sadness in another person or cause disappointment. If we say suicide is preventable, and we have that recurrent narrative running, what we're doing is we're creating expectation. When that expectation inevitably fails to be met because somebody takes his or her own life, there's an implied failure on behalf of some other party or parties. And ostensibly, it ripples out to everyone, right? "Quote unquote," everyone is to blame, because if suicide is preventable and a person's now dead, someone is to blame. So we got challenged by one of our guests some time ago, and he said, "I don't know if that's true." And the spirit of that is, I don't know that we need to be saying that, because what it does is it implies that shame is now a burden upon everybody else who's not the deceased to take accountability for something that literally is not in their control. And so we have this ripple effect of shame and guilt, because guilt comes behind shame and says, go fix it, go make right what you screwed up, but you can't, especially when the expectation is completely irrational and unreasonable. So now we have a whole community of people who are carrying a burden of irrational shame and guilt for something that they literally could never have known. And in your guys' case specifically, Mike and Jared, neither one of you saw the signs that we're all supposedly trained to find out, right? I'm wondering if you've heard that concept before, that maybe suicide isn't preventable, and maybe we should say it as an invitation to hope. So don't give up the work, right? Like, we still want to wrap people up and support them and tell them things are going to be okay and give them resources and all that stuff. But let's not take the responsibility on ourselves as the observing community as though it is our responsibility, because it cannot be. Have you heard that, or is this news? And what do you think of it?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and the parallels, and it sounds like kind of synchronizing again guilt and shame from that expectation, like you were saying. So yeah, I've heard a little bit about that before, and like you said, when we're creating that expectation and then it fails to uphold, then comes the blame and everything. So definitely open to grace and looking at it from a different lens. Absolutely.
So that's news. Then you hadn't heard that before. That, like, maybe we should stop saying suicide is preventable as though it's a monolithic expectation to put on y'all, right? Everybody's responsible for other people's deaths. Like, maybe not, because I don't need to carry that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was
Let me
wondering what
follow.
are some
Oh,
of
go ahead,
the
Mike.
sorry, what are some of the you're looking back at it now, like with Bill, I'll be honest with you. He had one time told me like suicide's the coward's way out. I think I said that when I was
Yeah.
speaking. So it's just like I didn't have anything that I could go off of except for occasionally get like upset about something really little, but it was more like, like anger that you'd have, not like the world's ending and I want to end it, right? So it's like when you look back at your father, like you said, he packed a lunch that day. Like that's a tell sign that you're thinking of the future at that moment, right? Like that would be one thing that I would notice and be like, okay, like he plans to live one more day. He's going to have a lunch, or at least go have lunch. What are some of the things that maybe you've looked back at, or were there times when you look back at it now and say like, oh yeah, he was hurting there, but no one obviously concludes like suicidal.
Hmm.
Was there certain things that he did?
Absolutely. And some were observable too from the dialogue with my mother and brother. So he lost a good amount of weight. That was a big one. He was heavily into the gym. He stopped going to the gym. He took some time off from work, which was abnormal, and then he went back to work, then took some time off again. So there were some signs. Even with the language of how he spoke to me on the phone, we mentioned about doing a trip actually. And we actually, him and my mother finally started traveling the year prior. They went to Marco Islands, Florida. They went to the Grand Canyon, to Vegas. We were actually talking about a trip to Vegas, and I noticed he said, yeah, you, Benji, and our buddy Carl, you guys should go. And I was like, what do you mean, Dad? You're going too. So there were some signs when I look back after some of the conversations that we did miss on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that, man. That's, I feel kind of fortunate that I can honestly look everybody in the face and be like, there was nothing. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like whatever decision Bill had made at that moment, that was a spur of the moment thing. He may have been thinking about it for a long time or had always thought about it, but he did an amazing job of not letting people see that side of him, because we all have these friends that we would expect that phone call for, right? Like we all have them. Like, oh, if one of my friends is going to take their own life, I know it's going to be this guy or this girl because they talk about it or they say they go through it. So it always hurts when it comes from somebody that you're like, him, he did it.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make any sense. So very very powerful stuff. I mean, man, when I watched the trailer to the documentary, Beautifully Broken,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just when that letter part alone, I got chills. Like I was like, oh man, like yeah. So I feel for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking back, there were some things. But again, like, staying present, that's a big part of where I'm at with life now. Staying in the present, just kind of going with it. What's happened is water under the bridge, and what we can do positively going forward. But again, this was a guy. This was a cop's cop. He was well liked, well respected. 1 year from retirement. Last person I would have ever thought would do something like this. Just completely shocking, unexpected. Yeah, it was just a shock, an absolute shock.
Okay, so all that said, he exhorts you to take this message forward to help people so they don't end up like him. We have to, we almost say don't reverse speculate because it doesn't do any good. But in this case, it's like he's begging you to like reverse speculate, use me, right? What is he trying to communicate from the great beyond to tell us that we should look at or should do differently or could have done differently in his situation? Like what's the message here? Is it to pick up on the signs? Is it to get the departments to pay attention? Is it annual wellness checks? Like what is he practically asking for? And then also what is he in the spirit of requesting go on? And that's a bridge for you to talk about your work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to that question, there was another note that we found hidden in a drawer of his. And this was found by my mother, I want to say a few weeks after he passed. And in that note, he said, I wish when I think of my job that I just get stressed out and it's something else. But it says if I was suicidal, I would be out of a job. That was a big one right there. Years ago, the state of Connecticut, I know it's different from different states, but we didn't have a workers' comp PTSD bill. We have that bill now. That bill passed through a lot of advocacy on Believe 208, the 5K. That kind of helped with awareness and everything. So I think his message from beyond and from heaven was just kind of honing in on that. Like, it's an issue that happens within law enforcement. More officers die by suicide each year than is what is deemed a killed in the line of duty death. So it is definitely an issue. So from me, kind of just taking that and having the heart, soul, faith, and courage to put everything I have into it. So I knew I would need some kind of platform to get started. So I'm like, what do I love doing? And I always exercise, always a big thing of mine. So I started doing marathons in memory of my dad. So I put his picture on my heart and we started doing marathons. 11 years ago, 2015, I found out about this race in San Francisco. It was 52.4 miles. It was a double marathon and ultra. And I was like, wouldn't that be pretty cool to kind of get this going and raise some awareness? So we did that. 2017, found out about the 100-mile distance. So it was the Keys 100. And it was kind of funny because like different PDs were there too, especially Miami PD. But it was like 10 of them doing the relay, the 100-mile relay. And then you have the individual ultra runners doing the 100 distance. So that took 24 hours, 40 minutes, that first one. 2018 goes by. I found out about the 200-mile distance. The race was called the Tahoe 200. 205 miles, I think about 39,000 feet of elevation gain. The 200s aren't as bad, excuse me, in my opinion, just because you can sleep. So you can sleep anywhere from 90 minutes to like 2.5, 3 hours at an aid station. That took with everything 85 hours. So that was 2018. 2020 was a big year. We did the Moab 240. That took 96 hours. 2022, we did the Cocodona 250. First year we did it, I think it took 104 hours. We did it again in 2023, which the doc is on. Then last year, believe it or not, and I will not be doing this again, they came out with a race called the Arizona Monster 300. It's 304 miles. That took 5 days and 19 hours. That was the toughest one I think I've done so far. But kind of my message of hope and inspiration is almost similar to like the great psychologist Carl Jung in Shadow Work. It's a power source, your pain. And if you can find a way to use it productively instead of numbing it through substance or getting rid of it in some way that's not healthy, ultra running is not the most healthy thing, but it's better than other resources. But if you can somewhat, you know what I'm saying? If you can somewhat use it as that power source, you can move mountains, man. You can look at what you guys have done with this. When you take that and use it the right way, it's amazing what can happen, you know? And on how things have changed in my life, how on where we're at now with I'm getting paid to do motivational speaking and travel the country doing these presentations that really fuel my soul because I'm able to help people in similar cases. It's life changing, So again, just filled with a lot of gratitude, from looking at the situation now.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I mean, and I say this with all the love in my heart. I think you're a lunatic for running that far.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. You gotta be somewhat jacked up, to do these. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to ask you about your healing journey because you've mentioned faith several times. You mentioned letting go of the anger and all that stuff, and I'm very curious about that. But as a prelude, precursor, something to that question, I want to frame it like this. So, oftentimes, people will be motivated by a thing, and then when they make peace with it, the motivation abates. Have you experienced that? Or is it like gone some other direction? Like, I can understand pain fueling things, but it's like, well, how do you reconcile making peace with the pain and still having your enthusiasm? Like, because you don't want it driven by emotion because emotion is fleeting. What's that been like? And also help us understand the journey that you took to get to where you can let go, be at peace, find your faith, embrace mystery, and still find love in this process.
Great question. I don't know if I shared this with you guys yet, but so Veterans Day of all days, November 11th, 2019, I was on a run in Ellington, and you can't make this stuff up. I was struck by a Chevy Tahoe while I was running. I was knocked out unconscious, and that took me back. Thankfully, I had on. It was just a broken. My arm saved my life. It was a broken humerus. I had fractured ribs and a concussion. But that time period when I was in between the hospital on physical therapists and recovery and not able to exercise, I hit a kind of a rock bottom point there. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And I'll be honest, that there was like some anger directed. I felt kind of abandoned, almost by God. I'm like, what is happening here? But when I was able to use that time and read different books, like Man's Search for Meaning was one of the books I read. The Alchemist, if you guys have never read The Alchemist, I highly, highly recommend. So much gold in there. I viewed things differently. I kind of like fully surrendered and things started changing. I used to not be the person you see here today. I used to not be this guy. I had so much anger for a while. And it's kind of funny. I tell people now, getting hit by that car, that was one of the best things that happened in my life. For some reason, it changed something. I felt like with everything that's happened to me, like there's a meaning for this. There's a meaning for all this resiliency, and there's a meaning. It's something greater than just me. It has to do with others. So I took that and I just literally ran with it, even harder. So to your question, that was a big point. And yeah, man, sometimes after these races, it can get a little depressing after because it's like, what's next? You do what's after this 300? I don't know, but I'm open to exploring. But it's like a high, and then you go down the mountain, and then it's like a ripple, So spot on.
Yeah, maintaining your passion or enthusiasm it can be tricky because there are ups and downs, especially when you're trying to do it of your own strength as opposed to allowing the spirit to work within you. And the injury there, it's almost analogous to Jacob wrestling with God, right? It's like he's left with a limp as a reminder. It's like you're not in charge here, buddy, right?
100%. 100%.
Or like Jordan Peterson might say, Bucko, right?
Yeah.
You're not in charge here, Bucko. And it's during that process, if you can have a deep, insightful look at oneself and realize that you don't possess the talent, the ability, the strength, but it comes from deeper then you do get to let go. You do get to surrender, knowing that it's not up to you anyway. And once you get out of your own way, it can be so much more powerful. I think that's a beautiful way of describing, what I asked about the question. More precisely, when did you realize that you were maybe angry at the wrong things or people, or that you even needed to be angry at all? Like, how was that for you? Because I know there's people who are listening. I'll throw myself into the mix. I've gone through this process enough times, because you don't just do it once. But there are people listening I know who are like, I want your peace. I want your freedom. How? Right? They always ask
Yeah.
the how question. There's a practical application aspect, and it's like, well, I can only tell you my story. But how was that for you? What did you do precisely? What was the awareness? What was the realization? When did you realize this isn't helping me? Right? Like, this is inappropriate. I'm only getting in my own way.
Yeah. I think it was that night on the 11th when I was laying in the hospital bed, and I'll be honest, I was like confused why I wasn't dead. I was like, why didn't you kill me off? All these things keep happening and I'm tired. And something changed where I just let go of like everything. And to get to that how, and I don't want to admit it, but like I had to really hit that rock bottom, and just completely, both on, physically, mentally, spiritually, just a full surrender. And very, very difficult to get to, very, very difficult to get to. So for those listening and wondering the how, just kind of examine where you're at, you know, think about, look at things from other perspectives, different lenses, different sides of things. And, like the purpose is greater, there's a greater purpose involved. I hope that helps.
No, absolutely, it does. One of the questions I had about this is the running piece, right? I think from the documentary I picked up, it almost sounded like you are just so full of rage that, like, you just took off, right?
Yeah.
Like how someone would when they're just, I mean, I
Forrest
know
Gump.
recently, yeah,
Different guy.
right. Like no, I had a dog that meant a lot to me that passed away last year, and I remember, like, for one split second, this is gonna sound wild, but like I could have punched the ground so hard that, like, felt it like an earthquake. You know what I mean? For 25 miles, right? So you take off, you run, and you always knew you were an athlete, right? Obviously, that was the first time you ran. But so how does it start when you kind of say, like, I want to run for a cause, but no one really knows your cause yet? You're just like coming up. Like, what did you do? How did you make that happen to where it became like a thing that everyone knew about? And he's like, oh, there's Jared again. He's running, you know?
Yeah, so that was such a big piece too, because in these races there's so many opportunities where it's easy. You get to an aid station and you can just drop, you finish DNF, it's called, did not finish. But like looking at it from a point that I've got people that are, watching now. I usually, when I initially started, I was doing it to raise money too for suicide prevention. I would donate to nonprofits. So I was like, I have to finish on. I don't have a choice. This is bigger. This is much, much bigger than just one person. So that accountability was really, really helpful. And just kind of having the discussions after, like, for me, it was amazing to see the responses on some of the DMs I would get, some of the messages on Facebook after, of, wow, what you said was spot on. Like, I was struggling too, like my dad. I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to try getting back into the gym. But like, I'm like, wow, this is actually having an impact, and it feels good. It's like a feel good, like that you're actually making a difference.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, please.
I was going to say, now it's time to talk about your work. You get you get paid to talk. I get paid to talk. You get paid to go give speeches. I sometimes get to go give speeches. What do you say to people?
Yeah. So I say we heal with connection. I say what's happened to you. Usually, if you can find meaning from it, my father's suffering was involuntary. when I do these ultra marathons, it's almost like a voluntary suffering because I can somewhat maybe feel like what, I don't know if that's the right word, but like, I don't know, it makes me feel closer to him, when I do these. So what I tell people is like, you're here for a reason. Do not give up, and the fight continues, and we heal with each other. I cannot say enough about the importance of connectivity and connection, like what we're doing right here. We heal with connection. Isolation kills. Connection, that component, that we heal when we promote a genuine sense of connection amongst each other and within our communities. Right here on all the listeners, the firearms industry that's involved with mental health now. This is the community. The backbone of prevention, which we talked about a little bit earlier, that's community. So we have to keep having these conversations, which sometimes are uncomfortable, but they are life saving.
I think sometimes they're uncomfortable because one of Satan's biggest tricks is to tell you you don't need anybody, right? One of the biggest lies going around the internet and culture right now is you do you, right? Like that's it's so narcissistic, but it also separates you from reliance upon God, from interdependence with your tribe, your community, your family, your spouse. It's despicable and it's destructive and it's highly pernicious. Because it creeps in so subtly. And it's like, yeah, I don't need anybody. I'm a self-made man. It's like, no, you're not. You never could have been. So that's I think that's a good message to send, is to push people into community connectivity, not to be confused with collectivism, by the way. As a therapist, I regularly say I'm trying to work myself out of a job, and I do mean it. It's why I produce free content everywhere I can, because I don't want people coming through my damn door anymore if I can avoid it, because if I can live in a happy, healthy community, I will gladly walk away from this profession and do something else. For you, what drew you into wanting to become a therapist when you could have just done that and worked some regular Joe job? Like, why go back and get the master's degree afterward? What was the draw there?
Yeah, the draw was after I went back to school at 20, when did I start? 28, 29, for the bachelor's. I fell in love with psychology. I was not a good student in high school. I never thought I would appreciate education until I was a little more mature. But I really enjoyed psychology. I still had some VA benefits that I was able to help use towards this. So I was like, let's get the master's and let's directly impact what my dad wanted. And what's really cool is the majority of my caseload and my clientele, they're first responders, veterans, police, fire, a lot of corrections officers. That's another on corrections. They're struggling, man. On our prison, those who work in the prison, that's a very, very difficult profession that does not get enough on press and enough on media of the difficulties they go to. Like the unsung heroes behind the wall. They're really hurting. But yeah, I work with COs, cops, firefighters, a good amount of military veterans. And believe it or not, I've got about 4 troubled teenagers that I'm working with now, and I actually really like it. Very, very moldable. So to go back to have the different theoretical orientations, like I'm a big fan of Carl Jung, big fan of Viktor Frankl, Adler, social interest and connectivity, connection for his principles. Like, yeah, man, it was just like kind of a full circle moment. This is the last career I would have ever thought I would be into, but I love it. Even on tough days, I love it.
Yeah, me too. Last career I ever thought I was going to be in. You listed off some really big names. Mike, you got your cup handy? Have you heard of the name Christian Conti?
Christian Conti drinking game. Yeah.
Every time we mention Christian Conti on here, I got to take a drink.
We have to take a drink. And if this was alcohol, we wouldn't be able to talk to you anymore. We'd be smashed, right? Sometimes he gets like 6 references, and if he's not on the podcast itself, like he's been a guest multiple times.
Oh, that's great.
It's pretty funny.
I'll get you. It's an inside joke. It won't be inside anymore. I'll tell you, but I'll email you offline and I'll send you some stuff. But you'll dig his stuff because he's how I learned Jung. Christian and I met playing softball, And then I was like, "You're a cool dude. Can I take some classes from you?" Because I was in another grad program at the time, and he introduced me to the world of Jung. I started out as a choice theory guy, which is perfectly fine. Glasser's amazing, but then I realized that it has limitations, and psychodynamic really has very few limitations. And so I'm now well integrated. But I also love Carl Jung. We should talk offline later about
Absolutely.
this. But
Absolutely.
Mike, you jumped in. You want to say something?
Yeah. I so when you see your clients or you're helping somebody, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a client, but how much does your story come into play with somebody who may come to you and say, I'm having, suicidal thoughts?
Yeah.
I mean, is that beneficial to use, or do you try to keep it separate, or do they already know about it coming into it?
Absolutely. So I don't share it unless they bring it up. If they bring it up, I'm open to disclosure because it could be helpful, you know. But unless they bring it up, I kind of do my lens like a whole different style, client centered, focusing just on them, and a lot of like Jake knows a mix of paraphrasing, reflection of feelings, summarization of thoughts, all these different skills to kind of articulate the right questions where I'm like guiding with them, but they're figuring out the answer. I think the best psychotherapists are brilliant in how they articulate the questions so that the client can figure out the answer. It's like you're guiding them, explaining the benefits of sipping on the Kool-Aid, but ultimately they have to choose to drink it. I don't think you should be forcing or telling them. You got to let them figure it out. So it's kind of like just what you guys do, meeting people where they're at.
Book sitting right over here. It's called The Art of Meeting People Where They Are. It may or may not be authored by Christian Conti.
There you go.
It's
See
just
how
out
that
of
works,
reach.
Jared?
I'd have to leave the
I gotta get
screen
a
if I were
water
to
or
go get it.
something.
Yeah. All right. So back to firearms, because this is a guns and mental health podcast. What's your involvement right now these days with firearms and firearms community? How come you were at SHOT Show in the first place?
Yeah, so Bill Broussard. I met him he's big with the NSSF. I met him at a prevention seminar about 2 years ago. So I got hooked up with him and Colleen. They brought me out in 2025, last year, for the first time. Very well received. They brought me back again this year, and I'm hoping I'll be able to come back again next year. So,
Bill Broussard
yeah,
brought you out last year, and he didn't bring you by to say hi to us.
yeah.
We only could have met last year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So, like when you're walking around SHOT Show, this year was different. We had the suicide prevention town hall, so there was a bigger emphasis put on the subject this year than the previous year. Although the previous year they did have a session, I remember, where
Yeah, they had a
people
panel.
like Galatru from TAP spoke, and Jake, I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I was there. I was in the room.
Yeah, okay. But so what do you when you're not attending something at the SHOT Show, are you just walking around and kind of meeting people? They're making introductions and talking about the work you do?
Yeah, so when I'm not presenting at the LEAP, the Law Enforcement Education Program, where you guys had the town hall, that whole section, when I'm not there, I'm just networking. Went to the AG's forum, I went to the governor's forum, like as much classes as I can possibly go to learn, to educate. Um, I have a lot of friends from the Marine Corps who are now like one works for Genesis Arms, one works for First Tactical, so I'll meet up with them. Other friends, because it's like a family, so many people there. So I try to see as many familiar faces as I know, and try to meet as many new people. I was so grateful and fortunate to get to go to the town hall and listen to your story. So I know we only had a minute to talk real quick after, but I was like, hey, I enjoyed your story, and I would love to connect after, and it worked out great. So yeah, I love SHOT Show.
Yeah,
What's
no,
your
it's great, and it's a big family. You got that right, and a lot of people that are either first responders, active duty military, or veterans are naturally gravitate towards our industry, especially for jobs, right? Like it's just a natural fit. So you're always going to have a good time at SHOT Show, especially when you come from that background. I used to joke around. I was like, am I the only person in the room that doesn't have a law enforcement or military background? Because sometimes I'd be sitting at a table and it's like, guys would get going. And I felt like I was like, yeah, I've never been in war. You know what I mean? I don't know how I relate to this. And, but it is kind of cool to every year. And it's great that they're bringing you back. I mean, NSSF needs to be applauded for how serious they've gotten over the last few years about suicide prevention and actually making it a thing. And putting every conference they have, they seem to now have a session, at least a session where these things are discussed, where years ago it wasn't talked about at all.
Yeah.
What's your involvement with guns these days? Do you go shooting much? Do you
Yeah, I still go
compete?
shooting.
Is it entertainment?
We're kind of behind enemy lines with the state of Connecticut, so like
You are.
it's a little different. Like I have a Darkstorm DS15. It's a 10-round fixed magazine. You can't even take the magazine out. You have to reload it you have to take it all the way to the rear. You load it through the ejection port cover, so it's a little strange. But yeah, I conceal carry, and yeah, I still have my guns.
Yeah, wow. They must have really taken out crime in Connecticut with that law that you have to do it that way. That's pretty awesome. I
Yeah,
bet you a lot of
that's the
crime has
safest
gone.
state in the union, from what I hear. So is Illinois. You sound like a pretty sharp clinician. If you ever get tired of living in Connecticut, Northern Nevada will have you. And I happen to know a guy with an agency. He probably could hire you.
It was
I'm really glad
when
you. Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
When I
No, go ahead.
spoke with the I spoke with the AG of West Virginia after, because I was like, maybe we can get connected with police. He goes, I'm sorry you're from Connecticut. You're probably not going to want to leave when you come up here. And I was like, you make a good point.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Do you have a family?
Yep, have a family. My brother lives up in Boston. Have a beautiful girlfriend here. My mom's about 15 minutes away from me. So yeah, I'm staying here. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Family's very important to me.
There's no reason to leave.
Yeah, as of right now.
Right. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, like your story, the day before I started this journey and created Walk the Talk America, if you would have told me I was going to be doing this, I would have told you needed mental health help.
Yeah,
There's just no way that I would ever thought it would ever grow to this. And, then I meet people like Jake along the way. And it's just like, I've collected all these great people that have force multipliers that have helped this whole thing become successful. But I want to circle back to the documentary. How does this happen? How does that start? How do you, yeah, like it's a really fascinating part of the journey. We've had media pieces done about us, but a whole documentary, that's a whole other ball game.
yeah. So it's kind of like a full circle moment, because when I came back to in 2019, I wasn't in the best place mentally, and I decided to go back to school, but I needed some kind of part-time job in the meantime. And this place I went to work for, it was a social media, it was a marketing place, and the creative director, we just kind of hit it off, and he's a filmmaker. So flash forward on back in 2022, he hits me up. He's doing this piece on people he know that have interesting stories. So we do a quick 20-minute piece on that, and he's like, I think I want to do a film on you. And I was like, you sure? Because we kind of joked about it a little bit in the past, but he was spot on serious. And he dedicated, let's see, 2020, rest of 2022, 2023, he dedicated 2.5, 3 years of his own time, his own money, on his own sanity at times, because he's such a perfectionist to get it down. But it turned, I got to tell you, I'm biased, obviously, because I'm in it, but the way it's freaking good, man. He's got all, it's dark, there's humor, there's lightness, there's action. He put everything in it. He's mending 3 stories too, because he's got the story of my dad. He's got my story on the story of me and my brother. And this was tough for me, because me and my younger brother used to not have the best relationship. And we have a business together now and everything. We text every day now, but it's come miles and miles in terms of evolution. But that came with me again too, kind of recognizing some things, taking accountability and dropping my ego. That was a big one. And recognizing that maybe it's not my brother's fault or my mom's fault or other people's fault for why things were in my life. Maybe it's my own fault that I have to be self accountable for. So having that rawness was a big life changer too. But the doc's been awesome, man. We're doing universities. We've got more coming up. There was a lady I met from Arizona State University. We're working that deal out now too. So we're just trying to get it. We do a screening, we do a Q&A after. We have different police departments. I'll do a keynote, and then after we'll screen the documentary. So we'll see what happens with it.
Do you know the name Chris Prohut?
I
It's
do not, Chris
P-R-O
Prohot.
P-R-O-C-H-U-T, but it's pronounced Prohut.
Yeah, I don't
We
know.
we had the fortune of meeting him several months ago down in Vegas for a different conference with a guy named Andy Arnold, who put it on. And Chris is amazing. Very similar story. We're gonna have him on the podcast. We actually have him scheduled, and then I don't know what happened. Somebody was sick, or we screwed up. Oh, Mike was sick actually, and so we scrubbed it, and we'll do it again later. But very similar, like cop's cop, hard charging, young and upcoming, and was gonna take his own life, and didn't. Got some interference, and now he's still around to tell the tale. But he's incredible. He's somebody that we should connect you with for sure, and we'll make that happen. But yeah, I was just curious if you're in that circle yet, because it sounds very similar. Kent Williams is another guy who goes around and does trainings to PDs. I don't know if you're connected with Kent, but you should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Arizona State. Just so you know, that's where I went to school. I'm an ASU graduate. I'm a devil. No, that's all right. That's all right. That's how we talk. But what I love, I was able to return to Arizona State and actually speak and be part of a symposium, which is awesome. That was a few months ago at the research conference, harm reduction research conference they do for firearms. That's one of the things I'm really proud of my school, as well, is that they're actually kind of getting involved in this suicide issue. And I know one of the ladies there, our story would definitely hit home with her, as she'd be part of our club as her husband took his life. So it's kind of cool that you're going down there, and maybe if you do go down there and you do speak, I'll be the first one to get down there and be in that front row like you were for me at the at the town hall. You know what I mean? But I think that's just awesome.
Absolutely.
You brought up COs. We have the good fortune. It's been about 2 years in the making. We got a grant from a private foundation called the Nicholas and Dorothy Cummings Foundation to fund outreach to the corrections officers here in Nevada, because, as you said, they are lacking in everything and overworked, under resourced, totally ignored. What's been your experience up there? And Christian Conti does work with corrections officers in Pennsylvania. Now he's going into New York. What's been your experience with that demographic as far as how maybe hesitant they are? Because in my view, it seems like they're a little behind the curve. Even to cops are just starting to figure it out, starting to figure it out. But the COs, dispatchers, they're not yet to the table, in my estimation. What's been your experience?
Spot on. Spot on right there. So with a lot of the COs, what I'm hearing is it's just relentless burnout on to the point where there's just a miscommunication, I think, on with their needs, with what's being met, with what's not being met. A lot of times, so like Connecticut, for example, we get some really bad blizzards sometimes. So these guys are working, doubles, 16-hour shifts. Sometimes they're mandated, they're doing like a triple almost. So that takes a lot too. And a lot of the feedback, what I'm hearing too, is just, you know, when you're behind the walls, and these are words of some of the COs I speak to, a very thankless job. When you're out in the community doing on police work and law enforcement, there's going to be some days where you're going to get that thank you and everything. with corrections, very thankless. I spoke to a guy who got this he got this life-saving citation, but it was for he did CPR on someone who murdered somebody. So it was confusing, very confusing for him. Things to that of that instance and that nature. So just a very, very difficult profession. And when you think about it too, you're doing time with them. You're locked up. You're locked up in there the entire time. So mental health, fatigue. There are we actually, for Believe 208, the 5K race, the past couple of years we've dedicated to a CO who passed away, died by suicide. So just kind of getting on, doing the best we can to help with advocacy, because I agree, they're not, at least from what I'm seeing, they're not as on the same curve as like some different law enforcement agencies are now in terms of corrections, and especially EMS, freaking paramedics. All of them, they're right there, seeing death on a daily basis.
Yep.
So very,
Fire.
very difficult professions.
I was recently awakened to the the prosecutors in like the at the county level, the district attorney's staff. So it's not just the attorneys, but the staff behind them, the victim advocates, because they're now seeing all the same materials, and with body cam footage everywhere now, they're it's no longer on paper. The testimonies and the witness statements, it's like it's live, and so they're getting a full dose of this, just the seedy underbelly of human nature in their psyches in ways that were not around 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. So very analogous to, I'm holding up my phone here to the listening audience. It's like social media will pump into your psyche a lot of very high demand, neurologically high demand content, whether it's excitement or fear or sadness or pain. And we're just not wired to receive that. So I got to believe that among these professions that are already ignored, now with technology, they're gaining access to visual and audio stimuli that just simply weren't present in those same professions a handful of years ago. And so there's a deleterious effect on the mental health of the people working those professions, stacked onto the culture that says don't ask for help because you are a helper. Yep. Stacked onto, are you competent to be doing this job, or can we trust you with a firearm or a hypodermic needle? Stacked onto admitting it and wondering if you're going to get CPS called or a knock at your door for an ERPO, right? Yep. Like, it's just crazy, the barriers to care that we have for these helping professions that, I mean, they already existed. Now like the toll is even worse. It's crazy.
Yeah. So when you speak at an event, you obviously take them through your journey. Do you show the documentary? What is that like? And what kind of reaction do you get usually from the crowds?
Yeah. So I'm very hyper, as you guys can tell. So I have a PowerPoint that just kind of primes my memory. I don't read off it, but it's there just so I can remember where I'm at and everything. So yeah, I walk through. It kind of starts, a little bit dark of what happened with my father, the signs that were missed, why this happened, some different things that there was miscommunication on from a leadership standpoint. I always talk about how it's water under the bridge, what's happened is happened. It's how we can learn from this, how leadership, how all of us, we can learn from this in the future. So yeah, so I walk them through that. Then we go into the healing part. I have a thing in there about my mother, how she's also a woman of faith, and she sees this truck with in this truck, the back of the truck, all that's visible, it says believe. And she used that believe as kind of like a framework to get her the 5K race started and everything. So like that was like kind of a sign she felt like a hug from above almost. So I talk about that. Then I get into a little bit more of my journey and on how the difficulties and how I screwed up and came back, and then got my act together and look at what we're doing now and everything, and then the ultra marathon. So it's a mix of all that. I end on the presentations with two things. One, I end with this. Have you guys ever heard the starfish story?
Yes.
Mike, have you heard the starfish
No,
story?
I have
Okay.
not. So I need to hear it. The listeners who
Check
haven't
this
heard it need
out.
to hear
Imagine
it.
we're on a beach, right? 10,000 starfish are washed up. Now, what do we know about starfish? They're amphibious, they're aquatic. They need to be inside the ocean to survive. So there's this kid, this optimistic kid. He's going down the beach one by one, picking them up, toss them back in the ocean. Picking them up one by one, toss them back in. There's this old timer, and he's like, kid, you're wasting your time. There's no possible way you're going to save all 10,000 of them. What's the point? And the kid just kind of smiles, reaches over, chucks it back in there, and he goes, I made a difference to that one. So the message is like what we're doing here. You do what the fuck you can. So I talk about that, when I do high school presentations, I love sharing that because I throw the starfish into the crowd. I use a different language when I say you do what you can, but it resonates with them. So I share that at the end, and then the last slide is the documentary trailer. So people get emotional, man. They really, they see it, they see the healing, and then like we do a Q&A, and the Q&A always lasts, anywhere from like 30 minutes to an hour because people just keep coming up after. So it's powerful.
Yeah, that very first time that you were either hired to speak or asked to speak, right? Like in the beginning, I was always asked to speak, and um, I I saw, I look back at it, and I wasn't necessarily ready for some of the stories that were told to me, and that's how I knew I was onto something big with the firearms industry because, like, we have these little bracelets that we pass out at gun shows and give to people, and it leads to free and anonymous mental health screenings. And the very first like thing that I did with Walk the Talk America was pass them out from my booth. I used to have a gun company. We had a booth, and I would pass it out, and it's kind of amazing, like what people will come and tell you when they feel it's like a safe space or like they feel like it's somebody's like-minded or and I was getting all kinds of stories about like loss and what people were going through. So what was that like the very first time you spoke, and then you had a Q&A, and then you had people come up to you after the whole event was done? Like, that's what was that like for you?
Powerful, a bit overwhelming at first because you'll hear stories of, you know, I had on I had someone in the audience that said in front of everybody, like I was this close to taking my life. I was right there. I've tried to hurt myself. Like it hits home, And I remember saying, you're here for a reason, and just doing the best I can to reinforce on, the positivity and help seeking behavior and all this stuff. But at first, it can be a bit overwhelming. It's a lot. You'll hear all, like, as you know, Mike, you'll hear all kinds of stories. Some
Yeah.
very tragic.
Do you talk about, like, I always say there's the act that the person did that we loved, and then there's the trauma bomb that went off on all of our faces, right? Like,
Mm.
how do you balance the talking about that, right? Because it's his story, it's your story, but it's ultimately his story. You're retelling his journey, then you got to talk about your journey, and then we talk about the bomb that goes off that just wrecks everybody from your brother to your mom to cousins to best friends to his police force.
Yup.
Everybody's affected by it.
Yeah, the way I look at that in that trauma bond, like I kind of go back to young almost. I look at my shadow, and my shadow is my father. It's almost like I felt for a while he unintentionally passed on his burdens to me. And it was almost like a concept of the sins of your father almost. So like that trauma bond and finding ways to accept that without judgment and find ways to live with that. Very, very difficult process, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I It took me a long time. It took me a long time to even talk about Bill without kind of tearing up. Now I'm really good at it. You know, people people always like try to say like, "Hey, is it something you're willing to talk about?" I'm like, I've talked about it so many times. Like,
Yep.
and every once in a while, if I'm in a weird mood, it'll catch me the weird way. You know what I mean? But for the most part, I'm able to kind of repeat the story without losing it. Sometimes I wonder if like actually tearing up helps the audience. You know, like that's what they're waiting for. But you know, it's like there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And like you said, it's all water under the bridge now. All you can do is make the best of it and the best of the story. Um, and you know, he lives on in your memory. And every time you step on that stage and have that microphone, I mean, that's just awesome, man. I'm really proud of what you put together. And you took one person's story, which is many people's stories, right? Like a lot of people have this exact same story, but you found out a way to make it super unique, and you know, you took off running. Like
Yeah.
that's that, you know, that's amazing.
And likewise with what you both have done. You, Mike, you have saved lives. You have saved countless lives, you know? And it's like a beautiful mystery because I feel after this life, you know, it's going to be like, wow, you know, I helped this person, and like when you get to see that, you know, so keep doing the work you both are doing, you know, Mike and Jake, because it's powerful stuff.
Thank you. It's really hard sometimes to sustain when the returns aren't obvious. We live in a culture that rewards almost instantly, especially when it's, you know, material desires, and so it's pretty easy to get wrapped up in wanting a return, especially a tangible one, immediately. And when those don't come, or they don't come in the volume that we would desire, it can make it really bleak, to yeah, and hopeless almost to continue forward. So it's we do have to remind ourselves, and I'm speaking to the listening audience. If you're involved in this work at all, just keep moving forward, because again, you have no idea where the ripple effect goes. I mentioned ripple effect earlier, but in a positive way, you don't know who takes what you do and then touches other people with it. There's a running joke for a little while that every conference we went to, or every show that we went to that had a USCCA event attached to it, somebody came up to me and told me that our work had literally saved his or her life. And I found myself in tears every time, possibly assisted by the lubrication of alcohol. But it was, it's hard to go months and months and months wondering if what you're doing is making a difference, and then to find somebody who literally looks you in the eye and says, it's because of you that I'm still here. I'm going to get choked up talking about it right now, because they're so rare that you can't help but be moved by it. And similarly in therapy, we don't get thank you notes from our patients when they graduate. Like, we get the handshake and maybe a hug at the end of treatment, right? But the ones who just drop off the calendar, we don't know. Are they okay? Did
Hmm.
it succeed? Did they run out of money? Like, do they not like me? So we continue having to elevate our eyeballs and put them on the horizon, and have faith that the the resources we share are flowing through us as a conduit, and they're not ours to give. They're literally infinite in supply from God and heaven to give us what we possess, because it's not ours anyway. And all we do is direct where they go, right? And if we believe that, and we're doing it for the passion and for the spirit of what of the work, and not because of the tangible outcomes in the form of money or accolades or high fives or whatever, then I think that alleviates the burden of looking for it. We're no longer seeking the quantifiable output that says, good job, buddy, your grant is renewed next year, right? We're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And it really, actually, I think, in my view, it alleviates a lot of stress. But in between can be very challenging. Um, so that all framed up to say, have you hit those dark patches where you're like, is this even worth it anymore? Or are you just like so fueled that you keep going? You're nodding. So I'm assuming that's a yes.
Yeah, it's like, to your point, like when I was, so I'm 36 now, on mid 20s, when I thought about like what is success, like the definition of success. It's funny.
Yeah.
You think
Right.
of
Right.
everything you kind of described, you know, but the way I look at
Accumulation,
it,
wealth, material
yeah,
possessions,
but think about it.
titles.
The
Yeah.
way I look at my resources now, number one is time. Time is non-renewable. You can never get your time back. Number two is health. Health is wealth. Number three, I would probably put my relationships, and then I would probably put money for. Now, if you asked me 10 years ago, it would probably be the complete opposite. It would probably be, oh, you got to have, the house, the car, all that. Where I'm at right now, like, I don't care about any of that. I'm genuinely looking at my time here as a gift, and knowing that this is temporary and just trying to do good things, with what we have. But to your point, it's tough because, like, when I was younger, it was a complete opposite. And think about that. Where does that come from? It's heightened by, scrolling on social media or looking at these different, what they paint the picture of success. To me, when I look at, like, on success, it's kind of like having that balance, a great balance between relationships with people I love, with my family. I love traveling. I've been to 32 countries now. I like spending my money on traveling, man. You'll learn more about yourself, about other people, cultural humility. There's things you can gain from experience that trumps money anytime. So yeah, it's been a journey, but I'm pretty content with the like where I place in terms of that for success.
That's awesome. That's a good, what you're describing there is an ego dissolution. You're a Jung fan, you understand that. And what you're allowing is yourself or your essence to emerge and be at peace. It's very tough to fight off the introjects of the world sometimes. But it can be done as long as you repeatedly say to yourself, I'm not here for that. I'm here for this other thing. Right. And you practice gratitude and humility and submission. And those are very challenging in the face of a culture that doesn't reward it in the cultural norms, shall we say. And we're in the middle of the Olympics right now, celebrating that and these people's accomplishments. Like the interviews of the athletes who don't win medals and are just simply there for the pure joy of the sport is like really encouraging. It means that there's still people out there who are not necessarily, the medal's nice, but I'm here because I love it. Right. That's really cool.
Where'd you get the canine theme in your handle? Where did that come from?
So it's kind of funny. That was my dream when I was a kid, and I just stuck with that email address on.
You wanted to be a dog?
Yeah, well, yeah, a mix of that plus the dog handling, but I kind of just kept it, and but yeah, it's funny. I think I'm gonna keep it forever. It just kind of how it started with I was doing I think I was like 17 or 18. I did this like mini internship at my dad's PD, and I was just fascinated by the canine cops. So I was like, I think I want to do this someday. Things happen for a reason, and I'm happy where I'm at right now. But I think I'm just gonna keep the dog. Keep the dog in me.
Yeah. You never had a desire to go into the police academy and continue from there?
I did, but I don't think especially the more I learned about my anxiety and some other things, I just don't think it would be a good fit. And yeah, I'm just kind of happy where things turn out. And my one thing my father always told me too, he didn't want me being a cop. He's like, whatever you do, don't be a cop. So I'm like, well, I'm going to be a Marine. And then he was just like, oh, I can't win with this kid, but he was proud. He was proud of that. But you know what I'm saying? It's like because it is a tough job and you change from it as a job. And I think, again, him being that figure of protection, he didn't want my brother and I getting into that. And what did we do? We both joined the military. He was in the Navy, I was in the Marines. So it's just kind of funny how some things work out. Sorry, my two Bengal cats are fighting behind the laptop.
I love that. You got two cats up there.
I've got.
You wanted to be a dog guy.
They've got a wheel. Yeah, I don't know if you can see. They've got a wheel that they run on. Yeah, you're gonna laugh.
Yeah, wanted to be a dog guy, and he
I
ended
up
up
having
with
two
Bengal cats.
Bengal cats. Yeah,
That's
I had.
awesome. Look at
That's
that.
amazing.
Isn't that funny?
Great looking
awesome.
cat. Yeah, I could echo that cop thing. I tried to be a cop, and my dad probably wasn't super pleased about it. And then later, after getting out of that attempt in that line of work, I ended up teaching at the academy for like 4 years. Oh, look at that light! Wow, we could have had that the whole time, huh?
I apologize. The cat. Yeah, I'm gonna blame it on the cat.
All of a sudden, Jared's illuminated. He looks like he's alive again.
Earlier though, he was kind of in the shadows. Like there's this mystery.
Witness protection program.
You should have said something. I would have put the light on.
But then what? I'm gonna bounce this off of you, and I don't mind full of time. I don't want to gobble up everybody's time, but like I realize now that that would have been a very unsatisfying career because I like seeing things through to completion. I like the depth of things. I like deep personal relationships. It's why politics just annoys me to no end because it's all transactional. It's not personal, and that's fine. That's the way it is. I just don't. I'm not wired that way. And I think in cop work, you're largely just it's transactional, it's fleeting, and it's temporary. It's like respond to a call, treat a symptom, move on to the next call, treat a symptom, and we never get to the problem, right? Whereas in clinical work, we can actually treat the problem, and the symptoms just they go away. And I think that's much more satisfying for me. It's probably why I'll never be working for the most mobile outreach support team is what we call it here. It's the therapist with cops, responding to mental health crises. I don't think I'll ever do that because as good as I am at re-regulating people in a crisis, it's just unsatisfying. I want to help the person fix what got them there, not just like treat the symptom. So has it been your experience as you've journeyed down this therapeutic path too? Is it you enjoy the depth? I mean, as a depth guy studying you, I'm guessing that's the case, but has that been your experience?
Absolutely. It's I like the intellectual stimulation where you can put the puzzle together. Like,
100%.
you
Yeah,
have to balance out from, what's the person's childhood like? Are there adverse childhood conditions? Why are they behaving this way? So it's kind of like formulating, mapping out in your head, a model, these different puzzle pieces to put together, and it's yeah, it's very stimulating, and you're helping someone, that unconditional positive regard. You're helping someone in crisis. So very rewarding. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Very rewarding.
for sure. Yeah.
That
Uh,
rewarding piece can get addicting. Like
Yeah.
that's,
Oh yeah.
our work. We just had that conversation with a group of
on
guys the
Tuesday.
other
Yeah.
day on
Yeah.
Tuesday, and just I kind of cautioned them because I'm like, man, we were talking about how you go from whatever it is you're addicted to, whether it could be like exercise or maybe drugs or maybe alcohol or whatever the addiction is. It's like then you think you're doing something good, and then I try to tell people all the time, like helping people can be very addictive. So much like there were times when, I'd started this and I was running out of money, burning through me and my wife's life savings to get this thing going. And I was like, am I like addicted to this? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
was it the addictive part that kept me in it? And I still don't know. It's worked out. I've been able to make a career out of this, but you got to be careful with that sometimes.
A
you
hundred, a
know,
hundred percent, 100%. I'm much better now putting my phone in another room. Like what is it? Around 9 o'clock tonight, I'm just gonna put my phone in another room because what would happen I always try to go through my texts before excuse me.
This is so funny.
I love
What
this.
you guys can't see if you're listening to the audio, the cat's walking back and forth. It's causing shadow and light, shadow and light. So Jared's going from like witness protection interview to washed out completely. It's like the camera can't adjust. This is hilarious.
This has happened before too with the cat. Yeah, I messed up on that. Where was
Hey
I
man,
going
it's a free
with
podcast. You get what you pay for.
that?
Addiction. Phones.
Yeah,
Put away your
so
phones. Yeah.
it was getting to the point where, I'm checking my phone and then I would get a call or something. And I was just like, oh, this is kind of like and if it's someone I knew that was struggling, I pick up and then you end up on a 20, 30-minute call with the person. But I was like, you know what? I've got a good life now. Maybe this is the like sacrifice, being on call at certain times. But I'm much better now at having better boundaries when it comes to that, because at first it was just, I think, when you're in pain, kind of like what you were describing, it's like you're directing that to something else and it becomes an addiction. When I was struggling with other things, with this happened, how I was dealing with it with alcohol and other stuff, I basically just transfer that into the physical fitness, into the running and everything. So like it's like one substitute for another. So I guess having the awareness to understand what you need and what works for you and setting boundaries, where you can have somewhat of control is very, very important. 100% spot on what you were saying.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we do. We take a great deal of pride in here at Zephyr is at my company is when work is over, work is over. You go home, you hit the light at the end of the day, you close the door and you go home and that's it. There's no emailing people off shift. There's no shuffling appointments to 9 p.m. because they couldn't make the 4 p.m. There's none of that. When work is done, it's done. You don't, and I've trained my students and my interns, I think pretty well to leave psychologically the work behind as well. So they're not rolling around in their heads, their patients' complaints or struggles or frustrations. I mean, it doesn't do us any good anyway because we can't solve it. And it would be very inappropriate if we did because we would deprive them of the opportunity of being able to solve it and learn from that. Leave it at home. I'm sorry, leave it at work and go home and be at home, be present with your family. Because if you're mentally elsewhere, then you're depriving somebody else of your attention and time. And then we get a recursive feedback loop that doesn't benefit anybody. And we all just get burned out. And then we complain about something called compassion fatigue. And it's like, no, that ain't it, man. That's called bad boundaries, right? Just like, let people solve their own problems. We're supposed to be the sin eaters of society. And we raise our hands and clear our throats and take that job on with a great deal of, humility and integrity, hopefully. We better be able to set boundaries and leave stuff where it's supposed to be, which is your problem to solve, not mine. I'll help you with it 1 hour a week, but I'm not going to mentally roll it around in my head for the other 167. Where would I have time for myself? The other thing too that we can become addicted to as therapists is helping people such that we don't let them off the calendar. Right. Yeah. So we're constantly looking for, well, it's just a little more, just a little more, just a little. It's like, no, that's highly unethical too. So let's not be treating people in perpetuity. Well, that's probably a good place to stop, huh?
Yeah.
Mike's not done. He always asks, he's got this question.
One last question. Everybody. We ask all of our guests this question. It's a different answer every time. I want to know, and I want you to throw out run like a maniac, okay? Like that, pretend you don't run like a maniac, like Forrest Gump. How do you tend to your mental health?
We always stump the therapists.
Humor is a big one. Humor is a big one for me. Yeah, I like comics. Big fan of like Ari Spears, Chappelle. Something about humor healing too. So besides obviously the exercise,
right? Besides the running, which you threw,
besides running, I would say the biggest thing is just humor between, shows between my friends. Even I can't wait to check out the group chat after, like the group chat I have with my buddies from high school. There's so much shit that comes up with that just has me bawling after. So like that helps. And for me after, so say I do psychotherapy from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I immediately, as soon as I get home, I'm in the gym. The Y closes at 8 p.m. So I'm in the gym from 6 to 8. After that, I'm home. I'm done. I'm pretty much done with my phone. I put my phone away and I'm just relaxing,
Yeah. No, that's good. I saw last night, I'm a big comedy fan. I go to a lot of comedy shows. I got a buddy that he's always down to go to a comedy show. We go. I saw Tim Dillon last night.
Mm-hmm.
He killed it. He crushed it. He's a funny guy. But yeah, comedy's a good answer. I like that. We've never had that one, Jake. We've never had somebody say like I watch comedians and I love comedy.
Comedy, yeah. Even maybe this is the military nature, but even dark humor sometimes that helps. You got to find what works for you.
And nobody leak the group chat because we will all be out of work and canceled if anybody saw the dank memes that get exchanged.
Yeah, 100%.
So dank.
But
how do people reach you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm K9 Jared, K9 and then Jared. Jared Buchanan on Facebook, LinkedIn, and yeah, just reach out. We're the LLC I have with my brother. We actually hired a website designer. She's doing a great job. It's almost done, so we're gonna have like an official website now. So it's getting to the point. It's just grown so much that we had to make a website and make everything like official. So very grateful, very happy, enthusiastic, fortunate to have met you at SHOT Show and have this conversation. This is a great talk today.
It
Yeah,
is. You just got a new follower on IG, by the way.
All right.
Building that following one therapist at a time, and you got Jake. So
This podcast, this last hour and a half that he invested, he got one follower, and it was worth every minute. All right. Well, I'll be in touch offline because I want to exchange some stuff with you. But thank you, listening audience, for downloading us and listening. And if you find this useful, please share it around. That's how we make Earth better. And thank you, Jared, for making the time to join us and for doing what you do. It's a very selfless act to participate in this type of work. And I appreciate you joining up because there's just not enough of us to go around. There's abundance of hurt that needs healing. So thank you for being in the fight with us. Thank you for everybody in the Walk the Talk America family for helping make this possible. And again, we wish you all great mental wellness. Bye-bye.